So let's get started. I think we have now seen something like this, right? AI has grown just tremendously over the course of a couple of years. Right? Early 2022, they're barely able to generate the image itself. Fast forward one single year, and if you use the exact same prompt, the model can generate something that is, kind of rival what professional artists can paint, can draw. And today, they're able to build these or generate these very high quality art for any genre, any style. And they can also make these into short videos. They can also generate 3D figures based on these simple images, right? AI can do that all. And because of this surge in AI capability, right, we see a huge increasing impact, right, in how AI shaped our society. From some of the good ones to some of the bad ones, like job disruptions, security, privacy risks, misinformation, deepfake, all the way to CSAMs that are enabled by some of these AI models. All right, and at the same time, I think more critically, I think we're at this inflection point where there are a lot of moving pieces today. Right? There are, of course, the technology side. These models are still getting better. GPUs, compute are getting faster. And on the other side, more importantly, there is a lot of debate and regulations of how can we govern this AI technology. Right? So there is over 100 ongoing lawsuits right now. There's around 34 in the US that's suing AI company about copyright usage, defamation, privacy risks. And the regulation side, where hundreds of bills in US, in Senate and state level, and a lot more in Europe, in Asia, talking about, okay, how can we regulate this, saying this new technology that really just bring up in the couple of years of time. And the outcome of some of these will inevitably shape how AI is going to look like in the future. Right? You can imagine if I'm here here next year talking about the same thing, there will be a very different conversation because some of the lawsuit results will already came out, a lot of regulation may have passed. And some of the possibility here is, on one side, if we fail to really regulate AI, if the lawsuits does now turn in the favor of creators, right, it's entirely possible that we start to lose this human creativity, and most of the content that we see online are AI generated, or generated as the help of AI. And all the other way, right, there is a risk of, okay, what if AI company have to pay every single piece of content they get? It's very likely it's going to bankrupt and going to significantly, push back against the progress that these AI models are making. And then, of course, there's a big spectrum that is in the middle of all possible things that may happen here. Well, given this amount of moving changes right now, it is very hard to say, okay, what's the future of AI going to look like, and how, as society, we can prepare for it. But what we know for sure is there exists a big power imbalance right now between the big tech company and basically everybody else. Right? Today, there is, for a user who are using these models, for content creators, for researchers like me, for government to some extent, there is very little say of, okay, what can we do with this tech? How can we regulate it? Right? How the training data is being collected, how the model are being hosted, where it's being hosted, and what type of content it can and cannot generate. All of that decision belongs to the tech company. And because of that, they have the power to make a lot of decisions and change things to the ways that they like. And let me give you a couple of examples of this. Right? Some of the issues that we have already started to see with this power imbalance is, tech companies, they can impact regulations. Right? One very recent example that happened in Europe is, the final AI Act that got passed is a significantly, toned down version of the earlier drafts. Why is that? Well, because Google spent a couple $1 million lobbying in the US, lobbying in Europe, and OpenAI, Microsoft threatened to leave Europe, and that put a lot of pressures on the legislators. So similar type of story are happening around the world. Right? If you look at how much money tech companies are spending on lobbying in Washington, it has been 5x compared to pre-generative AI. Some other things that related is, there is sense of forced licensing for creators. Right? It's, as one of these big companies, you can either keep posting on my platform, and I will train on all your data for free, or you can get out of my platform. Right? But I know that you're not going to do that because it's going to significantly impact your revenue. You have built your career based on some of our platforms. Similarly, in these companies, anybody who bring up ethical questions, concerns will get significantly punished by these type of things. And the list goes on. And as you can imagine, we are heading towards a future that will prioritize the interests and benefits of AI companies rather than everybody else. Right? AI company and their interest is, of course, how to make money in a short time with this technology. And things like security, privacy, ethics will all take a back seat. Right? There is not wrong with what companies are doing because that's what they're designed for, but the impact is going to be tremendous on our society. So I don't have time to draw this parallel between kind of what happened with the internet 20 years ago and what happened with AI today. But if you think about it, there is a lot of similar trend going on. And with the internet, we start to see a lot of these problems start popping up over the last decade. And we just start to put pressure and regulations on some of these. And perhaps it's too late, and perhaps some of the damage has already happened. All right, so next, I want to talk about some of my research, which try to bring some balance into this power dynamic of AI. And hopefully, we can go towards a more beneficial outcome with AI that we can work together as a society. So the first project I'm going to talk about is called Glaze. Is a way where we can try to protect the weaker parties in this equation against some exploitations. And the next one I'll quickly mention is called Nightshade, is about how we can build more proactive measures to leverage to go against these AI practices. And at the end, I'll talk a little bit about some of the deployment stories and our lessons learned and some of the impact it has made. All right, so to start, one of the biggest problems with AI is, of course, how this model is being trained. Right? They are trained on billions, hundreds of billions of content that collected from the internet. And you've got to have more than a few problems if your training data is the entire internet. Right? For one, a lot of the privacy leaks are happening in the models. Right? There are pictures of kids in the hospital beds end up in these models because there's probably some data leaks and these images get posted online and AI company trained into their models. And another big part of this is the copyright, right? How these models can train on artists' images without permission, without asking for consent. And there are a lot of lawsuits going on this right now, as I mentioned before, but let's not talk about the lawsuits. Right? Let's talk about how this practice has really been impacting individual artists and perhaps the art industry as a whole. Let's follow a very quick story about one of the artists that we have talked to. So Kelly McKernan, she is a famous artist today, but since she was very young, she has been passionate about art, going to art school, going to art colleges, start to find her own unique styles to finally become a professional artist, right? Making all her income based on her art. Then sometime in 2022, Kelly found that 50 of her painting was scraped into one of these data sets that they used to train most of these generative AI models. And of course, there's no compensation, no consent given to Kelly whatsoever. So the only form of credit, perhaps, is that if you go to one of these models today, you can say, OK, generate me an image in the style of Kelly McKernan. And the model will recognize her name because, well, her name is in the training set, and start outputting these images very much in the same style as how Kelly would paint them. So this type of mimicry has become so popular just over the course of last couple of years that it has become its own industry. Right? So today there are marketplaces, multiple of these marketplaces that host tens of thousands of models on there. And each one of them try to target specific artists. Right? And these are trained against specific artists. So that from a consumer perspective, right, there is very little reason why I would go to an artist to get a piece of art. Right? When I can go find their same name model online and pay a fraction of the price and get the similar quality of the image. And again, even though I'm paying a fractional price, that price does not go to the artist at all. It goes to the one who are building the model and who gets the training data for free. And sometimes the artist does not even know about this until they saw these type of models start happening. All right, so some of the damage, I'm sure we can all see some version of this, can imagine what is damage on art industry. But a lot of artists are taking down their data, are quitting the profession. The enrollment in artist school, of course, is shrinking. A lot of artists, junior artists are actually talking to us that, should we keep doing what we're doing? Right? That's a really hard question to answer even for us. At the same time, I want to point out that what this leads to is going to lead to a massive drops in the amount of human data online, right? New human art that's online. And we also know for a fact that AI model, in order to get better, in order to evolve, they need human data, right? Because there are a lot of research showing that AI model cannot train on synthetic data generated by these models themselves. And B, well, art changes, right? It evolves over time, and AI model is not going to figure that out unless it has inputs of new, fresh human data. So what's happening here is that not only AI is destroying the future of artists, but in some sense limiting its own future by taking the short-term view of, okay, what's the best way to make profits given the data that's online. All right, so let's think about, okay, how can we potentially address this problem? And I'm going to talk a little bit about Glaze, which is our project that try to protect artists against this type of mimicry. So very quickly, this project actually gets started when an artist reaching out to us asking for help, right? So Kim was a Dutch artist. One day out of nowhere, she sent us an email, say, okay, are there any tools that you guys can build to protect against AI, right? Mind you, this is early or mid-2022 when the DALL-E, one of the earlier models, just came out, and artists already worried and started emailing us asking for these. So we start working with a lot of artists, attending events to really understand the problem here, build Glaze, release Glaze, and we have quite a few downloads. As of today, a lot of people are using this in some sense to protect their art, protect their online galleries. All right, so this is how Glaze works. So when there is no protection, as I said before, anybody can take some art online, train a model, the model will generate very high quality mimicry of the original. And maybe with one extra finger, but those extra fingers are disappearing. Now with Glaze, what you can do is Glaze, well, before the artist posts this piece of art online, you will add some small changes. And Glaze is a program that you can run on your local computer and start adding some very small changes at a pixel level onto this piece of art, and it's optimized or designed to really confuse these AI models once they're trained on this art. And the result of this is, well, if someone were to run the exact same type of AI model training, the model will not be able to mimic the correct style and get something that's wrong so that the original style is protected. Artists can still make their living based on their style. So I'm going to spare you with the details of how we're really constructing these changes. But what I'm going to say is that these type of changes, or the intuition behind these changes, are based on a fundamental weakness of this AI model that has been observed in academia for a very long time. It seems to be very fundamental to AI models, so it's very hard to detect, to remove some of these perturbation changes on top of this image. All right, let me show some results. So this is before and after images from 3 different artists. So at this resolution, it's very hard to see the difference, but if you really zoom in, you can see some artifacts or pixel changes at background, for example. And if someone were to try to mimic this art, right, so if you mimic the original art, these are the results you're getting, very much the same style as the original. And these are the results if you mimic the protected version of the Glaze, right? Very much a different style that is public domain style, so it doesn't really matter if someone can generate some of these images. So this is Glaze, right? Maybe you're thinking right now is, okay, like this is great, but this type of passive protection cannot really stop AI companies from what they're doing, right? Even though there are millions of artists using Glaze, there's a significant portion of them that don't. AI company can still, scrape the internet and train on these other artists who don't use some protection tool like these, and they can still, make their profit. So the next project I'm going to talk about is called Nightshade, right? It's a follow-up to Glaze that we try to do a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more proactive protection here for the copyright holders. Right, now let's kind of shift our gear a little bit and take the perspective of a company, right? Let's say a gaming company. And say we have a set of characters that has been very successful, that we make most of our revenue based on these characters. And sometime in 2022, now anybody with the help of generative AI can basically, well, mimic our characters, where they can also put our characters in arbitrary settings that we may not want them to appear in. They can also take this one step further. They can generate new characters that are very much based off on our existing ones and try to take a share of our profit. And unfortunately, this is not a hypothetical scenario, right? We have already seen this. Take Pokemon, for example. There's already 3 different websites in the US built around just generating new Pokemon characters. Right, so these are some of the results. They looks pretty good if you look at it, but clearly, there are a lot of the bits and pieces from existing Pokemon that these models are trained on. This is also not just a problem for the gaming companies, right? The same problem for movie and TV studios, right? These are fake posters, fake images generated based on movie trailers, right? You can imagine someone can generate 3 sequels after you release your first movie, and that would be a pretty big problem for some of the media companies. The same issue for animation studios, stock image companies, and even fashion designers. Right now, there's tools you can generate fashion designs by just using AI, with the help of AI, without any knowledge of fashion design at all. Now, what can we do about this? Right, so there seems to be 2 options as of now. The first option is, well, we can wait for regulation. We can sue some of these AI companies for copyright infringement. Some of these are already happening. Nintendo, for example, just sued one of the AI game makers in Tokyo court. And the second option is, well, we can pray or we can trust that these AI companies will respect the opt-out list that they put up on their internet. And we all know how that goes. So I don't think I need to convince you why these 2 are not great solutions. So in our work, we look at whether there is perhaps a proactive copyright mechanism here, right, that can significantly impact or push back against these type of data scraping, data training. And we look into something called data poisoning attack. Right? I'll explain in a second what this is. But the idea here is we're going to change our image, our content a little bit before it posts online, so that these specially crafted data will poison the model, will have a significant impact on these models downstream. Right? Let me explain what I mean. So I'm going to explain very high level how these models train, how these models learn about different things. Say, for example, I'm going to build an AI model that can generate dog pictures. Right? Very straightforward. What I need to do is I go to the internet, search dog images, download thousands and hundreds of thousands of dog images, and oftentimes there are tags or the text associated with these images. And now I just plug all of these images through my AI model. And after seeing enough of these dog images, next time someone asks, OK, generate me a dog picture, the model will correctly generate something that resembles what they see in the training set. Right? So this is how AI model learn about all these different sorts of concepts, different art styles. Now, in a more poison scenario, right, this is what's going to happen, is say one of these websites are using some proactive measure to protect their data. They're going to add some changes, add some fine-tuning before they upload these art or upload these pictures. And the portion of these pictures will inevitably end up in the AI model training pipeline. And when you train on these images, right, these specially crafted poison data will change, will impact how models see certain things. Right, so that if someone asks the second model, say, OK, generate me an image of a dog, the model will misunderstand and start generating something that's completely wrong, completely different. Right, now you can imagine if some of things like this happen quite a bit, then the trustworthiness or the utility of these models will significantly be reduced, and they will stop to make money because most people won't use it to generate something wrong. All right, so I'm gonna again spare you with the details about how we're doing this type of poisoning. Right, the idea is using the similar technology at what Glaze does, different way, so that we can basically upload tons of images online that looks like dog, but in actuality, looks like a cat to the model. Right, so you can imagine if a model trained on tons of these cat images with a label as this is a photo of a dog, the model will, at some point start confusing what is a cat or what is a dog. All right, so here are some results. So these are images generated given the prompt on the left. This is from one of the state-of-the-art model from Stable Diffusion. And these are the results if the model get poisoned. Right, you will start generating a cat image when you ask for a dog, a cow image in a car, an impressionist painting if you ask for a cartoon painting. Right? And one thing I want to point out is, look at the number of poison samples. Right? We just need 300 of these specially crafted poison samples to make this work. Well, at the same time, these models are trained on millions of normal images that they collect from internet. Right? There is some technical details, technical tricks that we use to make these poison data a lot more concentrated, a lot more potent, compared to just clean images, so that by using a very small set, you can overpower what is the clean images that's in the training set. And you may say, okay, this is great, but it's not that big a problem, right? If AI model can now generate a dog, they can easily say, okay, generate me a bigger puppy or something like that, right? Can still get around some attack like this. But in reality, what we find is that by poisoning only one concept, like a dog, you will not only impact how model understand or generate dog, but also related concepts. Right? Even you ask generate a wolf, which model leverage similar features to associate these concepts, you will start to get corrupted. Right? You see like a wolfish cat getting generated by some of these models. Okay. All right. So another interesting thing to look at is, okay, there is perhaps more than one party interested in poisoning one of these models, right? And so what happens if a bunch of people, right, maybe independently, maybe working together, we just poison a bunch of these concepts against a single model? What's going to happen there? So what we find is there is something we call model implosion. The idea is, for example, if we poison 500 of these concepts, right, 500 different of these attacks. And if we ask the model to generate an image, say a photo of a balloon, when the balloon, the concept is not part of that 500 set. And the model will also get impacted how we understand and generate the picture balloon, even though it's not being poisoned, not being attacked at all. Right? And the reason is very straightforward, is model leverage specific technique to generate images in general. So that's right. Once you poison enough of these, right, enough of these concepts are associated with both cat and dog, at some point the model will implode. Basically, oh, I can't figure out what this actually means, so the entire model will just collapse at some point. So here are some more examples of this. So if you poison, these are the poison images, or images generated by model from the poison concepts. These are the images generated from not poison concept. Again, it will get significant impact. So we see nightshades or this type of data poisoning less as we're going to go after AI model tomorrow, start poisoning a bunch of these models. Right? We see this more as a leverage. Is that even though there's a small possibility some attack like this may happen, but that may stop or be sufficient to deter some of the AI company next time when they start to scrape the internet without worry about anything. Right? There is now a worry that if they keep this up, there is incentive for all sorts of companies, individual creators, to really do some of these poisoning and will be impacting these models. So in some sense, right, before it is a kind of one-side exploitation of AI company just taking data from copyright holders, and copyright holder has really nothing to do except maybe take down their website. But now Nightshade enable this kind of back and forth between AI company and copyright holders, right? Perhaps it's not tech company may still have the upper hand, but there is at least a way right now for copyright holder to basically strike against these AI companies. And hopefully, right, by having this leverage, you can lead to these two sides working together in some sense, right? You can have an argument where perhaps these two are not really against each other in the broader scheme of AI in the future. Maybe they should work together to have a fair data licensing system where AI will train on these data but pay a fair price for these type of data. All right, so in the last couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about some of our deployment kind of lessons and some of the impacts. So we did release both Glaze and Nightshade as a binary or as an app for people to use, and we also have a web version for people to download, upload their image to run. We have quite a bit excitement from artists, work with a lot of these artists around the world to push forward Glaze to raise awareness about this AI and tool like these. We also talk to writers, voice actors, musicians, choreographers, anybody who do some type of creation is concerned about AI taking over their job, taking over their styles. Similarly, we're also speaking to different guilds and unions about this. And we also integrated with two of the biggest art platforms that's online. So Kara and Magma are both art sharing platforms. So user can just run Glaze, run Nightshade with a click of a single button. All right, we also have quite a bit of engagement with legislators. It's mostly in the US. We talked to the US Copyright Office, FTC about this. We also testified in both Illinois and California. And one of the more recent news get out of this was Illinois just passed a new bill about regulating AI, how, specifically about stopping the style mimicry we just talked about in the Glaze setting. All right, so I'm going to stop here and just Twitter and our website if you want to know more information. Thanks for listening.